All right. Hello. Good morning. Feeling good. Yeah, feeling good. Watched a video this morning on how Google is pushing this XR experience, and it's like it's interesting how they're kind of doing it without any sort of consent. You can imagine like how we feel tracked by what we search and what ads we take interest in. And this is going to be at a whole other level. Like everything we experience is going to be just consumed by Google, which I don't like at all. This is like I never really cared about like my interactions on the web if it's being tracked because I don't like use social media and I pay for services, so I don't like get ads and stuff. Though, of course, to some extent, that data is used to kind of guide me into places, kind of controlling me. But if Google would like see everything I see, hear everything I hear, like that, yeah, it's kind of insane. Mm. But the thing that made me reflect is like the way the way I'm sitting now. I'm sitting at my desk in the basement because I need my own room to do work. Um, and I have a keyboard, I have a trackpad, I have my monitor, and it's not gonna be like this. Like I'm already wearing freaking glasses, so I'm gonna like sit down and probably like depending on what I'm doing, of course, I'm probably gonna have like my keyboard because depends what comes first, but I'm just gonna sit down somewhere with this tiny keyboard wherever and just have my screen in my glasses. And depending on where I am, if I'm at home, I'm probably going to use my voice a lot more to that would be such an interesting experience. Like just having glasses, a tiny keyboard, I will use my eyes to navigate as a mouse instead of my like trackpad and hand gestures. And then I would use my voice a lot more. Actually, like now it's very passive the way we interact with LLMs coding, but it could be way more like interactive. Even me just sitting down and kind of just talking about what I'm intend to do, just building up context for the AI. And then I start working and it will immediately like start helping me and I can talk to it. And yeah, that's going to be, I think to some extent, well, to a large extent, I think it's going to be incredibly freeing. Like compared to what I'm doing now, I'm going down into the basement, into like this shared office, bedroom kind of thing, turning on all my equipment, like sitting and looking at this like screen in the, yeah. Imagine just coming home, just whipping out my keyboard like a freaking cowboy. Just sitting down at any desk in the sofa anywhere, and I have my glasses on and I can do work wherever. At the kitchen counter, whatever moves me. I don't know. It's gonna be interesting. Like that's the thing I'm excited for work for my generation is like we're gonna completely replace monitors and at least to some extent like the analog equipment we use to communicate with computers like keyboards and trackpads and stuff. Anyways, yes. So I did some reflections. Did I talk about this? Yeah, this weekend I talked about this. So we kind of explored like two different patterns of doing state management, where one pattern is just using a class. right? This is what we know from Mobx. Sorry. And this fits well with like how Mobx developers write their state management today. But it's very a conflicting paradigm with React, right? Not only is it like classes object oriented, but it's also mutable. But that's fine, right? It's fine that you do state management object oriented, mutable, and then you keep it immutable and functional in React in your UI layer. That's fine. But then there is this other thing where we rather say state is like reactive, count increase, you return that state, and then you do something like this, right? So you move into a functional world, but it can still be mutable like this. Yeah, it can still be mutable like this. And then the question is like this Mobx Lite project, well, what is its intention? And its intention is really to make Mobx lighter. And like nobody writes Mobx code like this. So to reduce like the scope of it and actually like just get to the point of what it's supposed to do is, okay, let's just document everything as classes. So you don't have to change that paradigm. And then you have this other thing, which I like writing code like this more. Even though there are some typing challenges, it's not as straightforward to type it. I still enjoy it a lot more. And you'll see why. And we're going to look at the family app because I've been refactoring it a little bit. But I was wondering about like this Overmind project, the state management project that I did a while ago, has this really amazing debugger. And I was reflecting on like, and it's been like people have been engaging with the project again. And I was reflecting on like what makes Overmind so appealing. I want to say like the main, like the primary reason Overmind is so appealing is because of the dev tool. Like you just have everything right there, and not just having a dev tool. It's way the code interacts with the dev tool. So you have this single state tree that represent all the state of your application. You don't have like multiple stores and stuff. It's just all a single state tree. And then it's like, do we see a picture here of, no. And the other thing, so then that, I think that's the primary thing. And then the secondary thing is that you have this explicit concept of state, actions, and effects. You don't have anything else than that. And that's really what you need to like write good code, is to have like a strong concept of those three things, where effects is typically something that people don't really think about. They think about effects as just reaching out into third-party APIs. But in Overmind, effects is an interface between your environment and the actual application code. And the really cool thing is that whenever you run like an action in Overmind, it tracks everything. It actually shows you what state changes are being made within that action and what effects are being run. What are they returning? What are you passing into them? Like it's an amazing abstraction of a dev tool. So those two things, like having the dev tool, using a single state tree, and a single state tree doesn't have to be like an object. It can be nested classes. That's also a single state tree. And then having those strong concepts of state, effects, and actions, being able to track exactly what an action does, I think that's the most appealing thing. And then there are these other like you have things like operators, for example, but these are really more utilities. It's not like, they're just different ways of using state and state actions and effects. They're just abstractions over that. So one of the important things about the composition model here is that you can like action, state, and effects is like these building blocks, and then you can create abstractions on top of it. But one thing that isn't so easy to do with Overmind is to make like a single property in the state tree one of these abstractions, because it's based on something called namespaces that you compose and merge together. And if you rather have something like this, where you just return state, and that state is the state and the actions, and then you would rather pass in, you will rather access effects here. That's a much smoother model to compose, because it's like a component composition. But instead of being components of a UI tree, it's components of a state tree. The question though is how to make that work with the dev tools, and that's something I can't figure out. So I think this signature makes a lot of sense for doing like a next iteration of Overmind, because this fixes the issues with Overmind. Here you can have as much private stuff as you want. You're defining a state with your actions, and all this stuff. But we can't track it in the dev tools. The reason that the reason that the dev tools in Overmind can track when you call an action, that it can track what state you change, what effects you're running. It can even track what other actions you're calling from that action. Is because we have something called a context. And this context uses proxies. So even though you're getting like the state and the actions, so you have CTX state and CTX actions and CTX effects, they have a proxy that's bound to the action. So whenever you access and do something through the context, you're doing it through the context of the action, which means that we can track it. And in Overmind, this is very natural because of this splitting of state is defined over here, your actions are defined over here. But there's nothing like this in this signature. Like, you're defining your state here. This function doesn't, this action, let's call increase an action, does not access this state in the context of this action. The only way it would access this state in the context of this action is because we're calling the action, we start tracking the scope, and we see that, oh, something is accessing the state. Oh, we're actually calling an action now. So now we can kind of bind those two things together. But as soon as you do something async, blip, then you're out of the action scope. And there's nothing, if you do a state change in here, there's nothing that can like bind that state to this call, to the call of this action, which sucks. But if you had a context here, you would still operate on that same context. And the same goes for effects. If you have effects up here, again, if it's synchronous, we could say that something is accessing the effect. Oh, we're actually in the context of an action. But again, as soon as you go async, oh, come on. Come on. As soon as you go async, you're out of the scope of the action and there's nothing. And this is why Mobx has like flow and stuff. It allows you to like use a generator, and then you're always in the context of the action when you do stuff. But generators is low level. It shouldn't be doing that. To me, that's like you're making the DX more complex than it needs to be, just to have like some inner mechanism to do something. Yeah, so this is the thing I'm reflecting on. I feel like compelled to use this signature and apply it to something. I don't think it's right to apply it to Mobx Lite, because like there's a reason why people choose Mobx. It's because they're comfortable with object-oriented code. But yeah, so I'm gonna reflect some more on this and see if there's some way to be able to still have a function scope like this, but also still have effects and state. Hi, Adam. And still have effects and state bound specifically to a function, because that creates an amazing developer experience, like in terms of dev tooling. Like just like I guess Cerebral is a better. Just I remember at Code Sandbox when we started, like when we applied Cerebral, and you kind of see it here in the image here, like how this is exactly what happens when like the V1 editor running on Cerebral, when it loaded up. This is exactly what we saw in the dev tools. So you even had like, you had these named sequences that got like colored. So you kind of saw the thing and you saw everything happen, and you can see there's a ton of stuff happening. It was an amazing experience from a dev tool perspective. And getting people into the code was also super simple, because you people would open the dev tools, just open the app, open the dev tools, and then boom, it's like a fucking matrix kind of thing. They're just getting so much information about conceptually how the application works. And that's something that's good to have when you actually dive into the code. Anyway, so I think that's the thing. I think, yeah, that's something where I would love to like work on novel ideas, keep working on novel ideas. And I'm not saying like having a function scope is a novel idea, but it's something that's I haven't seen in state management. Yeah, no, yeah, it's like, and that's the tricky thing, is like you can make it happen. Like Overmind is an example of how you can make that work, by giving these function or these actions a context. Yeah, maybe there would be a way to kind of hook into like lower level stuff. Like you could hook into and kind of replace the promise somehow, and kind of track promises in general. But then I feel like doing an Angular hack. So we want to avoid like actually changing anything in the runtime. But it is interesting though, because it's only for debugging, right? It's not about runtime behavior. It's not production behavior. It's something you do only for development. So you can go pretty hackish with it. But yeah, it's that freaking async stuff. But it's also something like, so, well, one thing you could say though is, yeah, but I want it to be transparent. Yeah. What you could also do is like, if you have like effects here, so you could do, or you could do something like this, and then you have like effects, and then you would actually get a context here. So you would use, because you're putting increase here, right? You're using it here. So you could say that when you attach methods here, they're going to be typed with a context, and that context is going to be this thing plus the effects, for example. Yeah, that's also interesting. Like having the bubble plugin, it does open up, like if you did some build, that's also like absolutely worthwhile perspective of like, because it's all about debugging, that you kind of apply stuff during compilation, but it's super tricky. Like the biggest problem with this signature is that it's so low level. It's just a function returning something. So it's very, like, imagine the compiler, the React compiler, where they have the same thing. Imagine like the complexity of that compiler and how there are like trade-offs and certain edge cases they can't handle or don't handle just because of the flexibility of the language. But it's interesting how you could do something like this. This will be like, this is the closest thing I've gotten to doing something similar as Overmind. But the thing is, like, you could also just point to effects here. So it's like, it's a bit artificial having that context. Yeah, it's a bit artificial. But it would work, I think. It would actually work. Yeah, and what's interesting is that you will kind of have, like, these effects could be anything. Oh yeah, but yeah, but I don't want the developer to explicitly debug anything. It should just be there. It's just that it's kind of the reason why you choose. It's kind of transparent tracking or something. I don't want what I want to call it. Like, it should just be part of the framework, kind of like Overmind. You don't do anything to make the dev tools work. It just works. Yeah, but you would have to identify. Oh yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah, but the problem is, sorry, I misunderstood. The problem is identifying what is like an action. So, because it would be based on like some strong assumption about a pattern. So, first of all, it would have to check, okay, maybe the pattern is like counter state. Like, it has to end with yeah, you could do methods in classes, though then you have async, so you have to identify where you have await. Yeah, like, it's much more difficult to do it that way. I like the pushing it to a different perspective of like how you could solve it in a different way. Yeah, you could also base it on JSX, and I guess you could track like use of reactive. You could look at the members of reactive, and then you could kind of find, maybe that will be enough. Like, you're looking for reactive, you're trying to find members of reactive that are functions, and then but then the question is still like, because you have to have runtime information. That's the tricky thing. Well, I guess what you will kind of have to do then is like, okay, it finds this thing, and then it says debug. Like debug action or something. And it will kind of name increase, use the name from the function, something like that. It would take like all the args of the thing, args, and then it will kind of put the actual code. It will kind of wrap the code into like state.count++. Well, it wouldn't actually do that. It would also have to, no, I guess that's fine. That's fine, sorry. But then it would have to identify, like, oh, if this was an async function, then it would have to like state.count, and then, okay, it's async, so now this needs to be async. And then whatever does like a try, const foo, does something async. It being a promise or an await, like it has to identify that, blah. And then it has to go and debug action again and kind of hook it into, yeah, so this would maybe have a context and then debug action, and then it could like take the context of an existing action, and then it will kind of do the wrap the next code. But then maybe you don't have an async function, you do then, and then you would have to identify that. Yeah, so it's like, it's interesting. It would work. Like, it's definitely a valid way to do it, but it's very complex. As opposed to just, okay, let's just give it a context at runtime. And then it will just work. But that affects the signature. Like, you have to create some kind of signature that provides a context to actions, which this is an example of, which doesn't look that great. And you will probably like do something like this as well. So it's kind of, yeah, it doesn't feel like great. Because you get at any point in the actions actually point directly to state or directly to effects. Yeah, and that sucks. Because then it won't work. Yeah, so one thing that's interesting though, like if you were to use classes, so let's imagine this from a class perspective. So you would have, well, we have a class up here. So if you were to use this .count, so what we can do, what's interesting here is that this represents a context. So it doesn't matter if it's async, right? If you await foo, you're still going to use this. So you're pointing to the same context. So that's interesting. And that means that if you were to yeah, so that would handle, like, you could track state changes that way in the context of the action by using the this keyword. If you were to have like an effect here, constructor, private effects, something like this. So these effects, that would be its own API. It will kind of just make all effects being like basically the same as this. So an effect is basically the same as like a state container. It really is state. It's just designed to be not accessible by components. That's really, it's more of an artificial separation, but it's a good separation because you don't want to leak third-party stuff into your components. So you would define these effects exactly the way you define like a counter and stuff, but it would have its own proxy. That's the point, for tracking. So you would kind of pass these effects in. So maybe you would have like counter would be like reactive new counter. Yeah, and I was also thinking about how these effects, they are going to be used at any level in the tree. So it would be so interesting to have a dependency injection for the effects. One thing is like passing arguments down to nested state, but that's based on current state, build up some nested state, right? But effects is just coming from the environment, and you should be able to inject that at any level. I have built a dependency injector before. I can't remember how I do it, but that will be really interesting. So that you will have like counter, you make that counter reactive, and then these effects yeah, and then you pass in these effects, and those can be used anywhere. So you have like something called like you just say private effects, something like inject effects, something like that. That's as simple as that. I remember trying to remember how I did that dependency injection thing. Yeah, or you can just say effects or something. The point is that you get those effects in there. And then the constructor is all about like state dependencies. You don't have to manually pass the effects down. That's interesting. And then the way this will be tracked is that, well, so there is still a challenge. Yes, that's the last thing. So if we did something like that, sorry, I diverged on that one. But if you were to point to this effect, and you will kind of run something, the this keyword is what binds you to. So the point is that okay, so the very interesting thing that happens here, let's just remove this for now, is that this action is called from a component, right? And oh, sorry, I removed a bit too much. So that action is called from a component. So what happens under the hood here is that this reactive thing returns a proxy. So we're gonna explore that a bit more. Finish a refactor of the family square map. I also have another thing to discuss. I had a lot of reflections this weekend. Anyways, so this is like, this code isn't reactive at all. This is kind of the point now, making a Mobx simpler. What you rather do is that when you expose your state to components, you're exposing it using a reactive proxy. So the thing that happens under the hood is that React is going to call this increase, but it calls it on the proxy. So the proxy is then gonna, the proxy is actually calling increase, and it can decide how, it can decide the context, it can decide the dis of the action being called. So we can do whatever we want there. So what it does here is that normally, like pointing to properties and stuff, that's like what the proxy does is it makes properties observable lazily, but it also what was I gonna say? It also changes the dis reference, because the dis reference coming from React is by default, it's like the proxy thing, which means that if this.count was performed, it would actually throw an error because you can't change state from React. But internally in the proxy, when you call a method, it actually flips the dis reference back to the reference of the class, the original target, which does allow you to make changes to the state. My point being that this reference can still be its own like debugging proxy. So it doesn't only put back the target so you can make state changes, but it can also encapsulate the information about what the action is, right? So it's an instance of an action call on this action, on this path in the state tree. So it has like the path down to the action. It has an instance reference, like just a number instance reference baked into the dis reference as a proxy. So whenever the dis reference is used inside the action, it's gonna be going through that action call proxy, which allows it to bind any state changes to that action call. If you were to access any effects, That's the thing I'm reflecting on now. It's like if you were to point to the effects, would it know it was in the context of, because you are, yeah, I think that would also work. So you can do like, since you're doing this dot effects, whenever the property is effects, like this is a first class concept, these effects. So it can actually figure out that you accessed effects, and then it's going to wrap those effects with the same information. Like what's the action instance call? Yeah, it's kind of like putting code. Like you can put, like there's 3 places you can put code, or kind of, it like the method looks just like a normal method, right? But since it's going through a proxy, you can call something before increase is actually called. You can call something after increase is done. But you can also, as I said, define the disreference of the method call, which you can encapsulate with information. So yeah, I feel confident that could work. That could definitely work. Yeah, the thing is like, the thing is that you actually, so the debugger, I didn't explain that very well. So the thing is that it's not enough to know the beginning and the end of the method. You have to know about when this is called, when this is called, when this is called, like specifically, so that you can populate. Where is, do I have like overmind actions? Where's the actions tab? Why don't I have more images here? Do I have the dev tools? Yeah, dev tools. I think I have more images. Don't I have more images? That sucks. Do I have some images here? I should have more images. Anyways, so you can imagine like when you look in the dev tools, what you see is like an action being called, increase. It gives you the exact path. No, because how do you know what is actually being called? So you can imagine it more like it's actually tracking, right? So it's true that like the code you call before increase is creating the this context, a trackable this context, so that it knows that this specific state change using this context was in the context of this specific action call. And the same for the effects. So you kind of just track everything in the this proxy. And then at the end of the method call, you extract those things. It's basically a list of first this state change happened, then this other state change happened, then we ran this effect, then this state change happened, and then this other effect ran, and then we did this state change. So it's kind of like a component observation. So it's like an action observation. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think we're talking about the same thing. Just using, yeah. So think of it as like action observer, basically. Yeah, exactly. I think we are, yeah. But yeah, I kind of like that term, like action observer. And the way it observes is using the this reference. That's really cool. And also the really cool thing is like, since you're pointing into this from React, you kind of have this proxy that actually points you to the destination in the state tree as well. It's not like, it won't just say increase. If you pointed through React to root.nested.increase, you would actually see that name, like root.nested.increase in the dev tools. Yeah. So that's a good question. Like there are two things I'm still unsure of here. So as you said, you can reference something nested, or you can reference a parent, but you might also have logic that doesn't like run because of a component. So, but let's think about the nested stuff first. So, if you were to call like this.nested.count plus plus, that would just work because that's just a state change. So this state change is like something triggers somewhere else that's being observed. Like it's exactly like an observer in a component. It's like we have an active observer, and then whatever state change happens, that's gonna be tracked by that observer. Or the generic observer kind of sees, oh, a state change happens. Do we have an active observer? Oh, we have this action observer. Let me hook that state change into that active action observer kind of thing. But here it will be a little bit different because it wouldn't be like the active action observer. It would rather be the proxy that has information. The action has the proxy has the information. Yeah, exactly. Every proxy knows its own path. So I think that would just work. And even if you were to call like a nested action, that would create like a new that would create a new action proxy. But you can have, just like you have stacked observers, you can have stacked action proxies. So you could even show in the dev tools that this action called, like nested, showed that it called this other action. And that action made these state changes. Kind of like how the Cerebral dev tools looks. As you can see here, it kind of has this nested behavior. So you could do the same there. But another thing is, but this is completely driven by React. So this wouldn't be like generic action calling. So if you had like a constructor that kind of this.foo, like that wouldn't be tracked. But I think that's exactly what you want. You want everything to be driven by the user interactions, right? You want your state management to just be your state management. And what you want to expose and what you want to make reactive, that's the stuff you want to track. So that's perfectly fine. If you have like a listener here, internal listener that updates some state or something, that's not something you want to track in the dev tools. What you want to track in the dev tools is how React is affecting your state, arguably. Arguably. At least that would be like a limitation. Yeah, nested action observer scope. Yeah, so that would be really cool. That could work. It wouldn't work with Mobx because Mobx isn't based on. But we have proxy state tree. Proxy state tree is really designed for this. And it even supports classes. But yeah, maybe we'll have to build something new for this. But it's a really interesting idea, I think. But then we're back to classes though. So you have to use classes. Which is, yeah. I wish it was possible to do this without class. But it becomes so unnatural to do it with a function. Again, like counter. Like the beautiful thing is that you have these direct references. Oops. That's the beauty of this pattern. It's like nothing is using this disbounding, but that means that like the context here isn't this. The context here is the function scope, which is the really nice thing, because everything can point to everything kind of thing. But you can't proxy a function scope. That's the problem. Yeah, but what's even cooler about what we did here is like, it's just normal code. There's no special abstraction to make it work from the developer experience. It would just work, which is really cool. Yeah. Yep. And that's kind of been the thing I've been chasing as well, is like, what if you could just use JavaScript for state management? Why do we need all these abstractions? And classes, even though you can consider that like in a kind of an abstraction in the language, it's still just a language. It's kind of sad though. You can't do it here. I do. One thing I can't quite remember is how I built this injection thing once. And I can't remember, like, how would you, if I'm just assigning a new property, dynamically, how would that get access to the injection? Because here you would kind of do, you wouldn't do this, you would kind of do reactive counter. And then, so you just reference the root class. And then internally, it creates like a injection container. And through the pure instantiation of that counter, it's the same thing actually that we're doing here. You're kind of setting like how should I call it? Like an you're kind of observing the creation of classes, and then you make this effects call, be able to kind of return these effects. But maybe that's fine. You know what? Maybe that's fine. Like, maybe it doesn't have to be that complicated. Because you're not supposed to, like, it could be a poor man's injection. meaning that, you wouldn't even do this. You could just do new counter. Yeah, poor man's injection. So you just do new counter here. And then you have these effects as the second argument. And basically, when you call effects globally, it's just going to use that argument. The point being that if you're in a different environment, because you can only call reactive once, that's the thing. You can only have a single reactive. But I guess that's kind of the problem. If you're going to write tests, you really want these effects to be bound to the instantiation of this counter. Yeah, I'm going to try to remember this, because if you did this, you had this injection container that is kind of being bound to this class. So during instantiation of this class, this effects call is going to return these effects. So if counter creates a nested class, you're still like in that scope of like creating this counter, and it's still going to return these effects. But what if I dynamically in the counter just assign a new class? I can't remember how that works. What was that project? Oh, that was the thing with that was a really cool project, because I had like this visual tool for creating classes, and it actually wrote code and stuff. I really want to demo that because it's super, super cool. But yeah, I can't remember. Let's ask GPT. I am reflecting on this dependency injection thing I wrote in TypeScript. So generally, you need to like const my instance equal create some class. So that the dependency injection can put the create so that the dependency injection controls the instantiation of classes. So if I, for example, some injectables, if I've for example, I would be able to inject those injectables during instantiation of some class, and any nested class that class instantiates during its instantiation. But what if some class dynamically creates a new nested class? How would I make my dependency injection still work? This is very ambiguous. I wonder what it's gonna say. When you do, you're telling your container, please new class for me. Yeah, wiring up any CTOR injections along the way. Yeah, you sidestep the container. Always ask the container to... Oh yeah, I remember now. Because you do... Oh, and you also have... you have factories. Yeah, inject a factory. Exactly. Because you don't have just, okay, go and create this class. You also create like these factories where you use these decorators. So some class under the hood here has a container, and that container has like different types of instantiators. Some of them can be like a singleton, it can be a factory, And then you kind of have to use decorators to say that. Oh, well, it took it a bit literal. Yeah. And that's the tricky thing, because if you don't use decorators, there's no like, there isn't any reference to the underlying container. Yeah, there is no reference to the underlying container. So if you wanted to do it without decorators, you would have to like hack the typing for it to be able to do anything, which kind of sucks. Yeah, so that wouldn't. Yeah. Yeah, or yeah, so what you could do, okay, so what you could do is like, but that's, I don't like it, but what you could do is you could say, if you wanted to like add something, so you would have like this dot somethings push, you could say injectable, and you say this, and under the hood, the this would actually have access to the container, and then you would say something, and then you would kind of, okay, if it wants any arguments, you would say foobar. So this is how you would kind of create classes. Then the something would be able to inject effects, but that's so artificial. Yeah, so that's a lot of orchestration just for injecting effects. So maybe that's not really a good idea. Like you would do new counter and you would do effects. You would still have to pass them around. And then you say like private effects, but it would still work, like the tracking and stuff. But it would be so nice to have it like as a first class accessible thing. Yeah, I'm gonna think about that. Yeah, it's very cool. Like dependency injection is really, it's a really nice developer experience from my experience. Yeah, interesting. Okay, but that was a nice run through. But again, like the whole point of this was to think of like the next iteration of Overmind, which has more of a functional approach to things. But that wouldn't actually work. So, yeah, that definitely needs some more thinking. But what I wanted to show is, let's see, yarn dev. I played around with. Oh, I don't need. I played around with something. Localhost. Oh, no. Wait. Oh, it's 54. So what's kind of cool about this one? Oh, I'm using the mobile phone thing. Let's see. Let's move it back up here. So now I have this to-do state, and what is kind of cool is that, well, this just works. Let's see. Let's do push title. So when I click this, you can see it increases. It's based on the length. So everything just works here by simply doing like reactive. But what I also did is that I tried to do immutable reactive. So if I use immutable reactive, it stops working because I'm mutating. It's as if I would kind of point to a state in React and just push to it, right? That doesn't work. But if I do, well, I could do that, or I can say this test to do's and title. So if I were to do this, it works again. And what we've done is that we've created, hello, good morning. So what we've basically done here is that we made, it works exactly the same. It's just that we're forcing you to reassign your state, meaning it becomes immutable, just like React is immutable. And basically what it means is that now you can use the React compiler, you can safely use effects, you can use memo, you can, like, it's basically guaranteeing that React gets the state in the way that React really wants it. What you lose though is like nested observation. So if I were to like go into to-dos 0.completed is true, that's the kind of thing you lose by doing immutable reactive. But you still gain the performance boost of doing like you're pointing to this.test.todos. So that doesn't mean that test needs to change its reference, right? But you can still observe because you're observing the specific property in React. So you kind of get this nested performance boost or targeted. How should I put it? You get targeted observation, but not as nested as you do with the mutable API. But you get the compiler support and you get the ability to use hooks. So there's just two different modes. And it was very easy to do it. So that's interesting because that's a worry I have with Mobx. It's like when the React compiler comes along, it's not going to work. Mobx is going to break with the React compiler. So the thing that's interesting is like React still requires to be able to reconcile. React isn't able to do this like nested target. So if you have like this big context, you're going to have issues. Maybe, I don't know how much the React compiler optimizes, but if every state change comes from a single context, it's likely it's still going to be an issue. But that doesn't happen here, even if you have immutable reactive. Because when you make a change to the actual test namespace, only stuff actually looking into that test namespace is going to reconcile. Anyways, but the cool thing about the React compiler, it doesn't only optimize the boundaries between components, they optimize the reconciliation of each component, which is very interesting. So if you did something like this, what you would gain is like absolute best performance because you can do a nested change with observation. And when that component reconciles, that's already been optimized by the React compiler. And then the other argument is like, if you're using React, you kind of think about state as immutable already. So you can continue doing that here. That's kind of the pitch for immutable reactive. Yeah, so that was just something I was playing with. And then we have Where's family scrum? There you are. Yeah, git pull. Yeah, I'm just gonna, no, not picture. Where were we? No, I think I'm already linking this, right? Yeah. And then I just have to, yeah, whatever. Close all. So I think it's all good here. I can restart language server. Where is it? TypeScript. Oh, come on. TypeScript. Where are you? Restart. Where are you? AutoPen. Debug. Oh, is it because I haven't opened? Oh, come on. Oh, come on. There we go. Okay, I had to open a file. Anyway, sorry. So I've actually refactored the stuff in here now to be classes instead. So that's something for interesting for comparison. Oh, maybe I didn't. Yeah, yarn link Mobx Lite. Ban. Yes. So maybe we can look at something that's, yeah, grocery state, for example. So now it's like grocery state, it has a constructor instead to get the environment and the stuff we previously got into just the function arguments. And then it sets up everything. Here I didn't actually like move them into private things. It just, yeah, that feels a bit weird. But maybe you could do that. And then you have add grocery mutation, shop grocery mutation. So everything here is kind of the same. You know, I think if I wanted to embrace React, I could just use React Query. Like it's all of this stuff is just data management. There isn't like much else state management, but at the same time, it is really nice to have it decoupled from React. Yes, so it basically looks like that now. What I'm curious about though is when we actually fix all of this, if the app just works. So I wanted to check, let's see, query to do. Where's query to do? There's query to do. Let's see if we can get this thing running. Oh. Yeah, so that's this. And there's no reactive anymore. It's just this.env. Oh, sorry. This.family persistence. And this.to-do queries. Oh, what did I do wrong here now? Oh, it's... Why is this happening? I had this error previously as well, and I can't remember what caused it. Yes, it's because it's not a query. It's a method. Yeah, because I got these auto suggestions, and it was just wrong. Let's see, query to do, add to do mutation. So that will be add to do mutation. Add to do mutation, and that will be a mutation. Yeah, I can't remember the arguments, but I guess we'll see it. It's async. Yeah, I guess, yeah, sorry, new to do. This. This. Cool. Yeah, the thing I really love about doing this is this thing. Like just having that bam right in your face. It says exactly what it's doing. That's really, really nice. Also, when you like just console log it, it shows you all the functions. While with a class, methods are on the prototype. So you have to do like another, like you don't get the exact state of the class when you console log it, or you don't get the like complete understanding of what that class actually does, because you have to look into the prototype to find the methods, which I don't like. I really don't like that. For me, it's like, I guess that's the thing that's kind of been on my motivation, is like, how do you get that mental image that you have when you implement something? How do you transfer that as efficiently as possible to someone who hasn't seen the code before? And then you kind of go up, like, hasn't seen that specific class before, and then that namespace before, and that application before. Like, how do you bring that mental image of what the application actually does? And that's exactly what these dev tools do. They don't help you debug. Like, it's not a debugging tool. It's your app. It's like, it's the visual representation of your app and what it does. So it doesn't, it's not like you have a bug and then you start the dev tools. You use the dev tools all the time to just keep that mental image in your head. Yeah, but the good thing about a class is like, I don't have to type this. I don't have to type the actual to-do state, blah, 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 blah. So update to-do mutation. Yeah, let's just copy this. Update to-do mutation. Sorry that this is a little bit boring. Oh, sorry. Mutation. Yeah, I guess we can even have it named. Oh no, we can't have it named because we lose the context. We have to do this. Oh, sorry, async. There we go. Yes. One thing I was wondering, I wonder if TypeScript, I'm going to test something. What if I do private async update to do? And if I put these things in here, and then I say ID, what was it? To do. Now these aren't typed, right? But what if I do update to do ID to do? Are these typed now? No, that would be so interesting if that was actually possible, because that's my problem with this. It's like, first of all, I'm moving them down into private, so it gets harder to see what is actually public, because you just have this private keyword. And you have to double type it. That's also my problem with this. I have to type these arguments, and I'm also typing them here. But it was so cool if, since I'm using the arguments here, it would automatically type these arguments. That would be so cool. But it doesn't do that. So that's basically why I've been inlining them like this. It's just because they are private, but I don't want them to be like mixed with the public methods. But then again, it gets a bit harder to kind of get through what's all the public stuff here, because I have to read the implementation details of, yeah. Yeah, anyways, update to do mutation archive. Oh, there's a lot of stuff here. What's the weak state? I'm not sure if, okay, that one's simple. Weak state. Okay, let's see if we can actually get through this. Archive. Oh, archive to do. So it's like archive to do mutation. Boop. Await this. That was archive, and then we have add checklist item. Oh, add checklist item was a mutation. This. It was add checklist item mutation. Yeah, and then toggle checklist item. Yeah, but I think this is a good example of how, like, it's just working against you in terms of making things clean, while the functional approach does help you. Like, it doesn't put blockers in your way to make things more nice to read. Just the thing I talked about here, like, what was it? Toggle. Oh my god. Toggle check. Wait. Yeah, toggle checklist item mutation. Wait, what happened? Ah, for fuck's sake. Ah! So when I like define toggle checklist item mutation, like if I could just say toggle checklist item here and then just go implement it and I would just type it there, everything would work. But now I can't do that. I have to do, I guess what I could do is like I could say private toggle checklist item and then make that the arrow function like this. And I guess I could even like, yeah, I could do this, but and then say this dot toggle checklist item. And then I would have these like different places. Oh, sorry. Yeah, maybe that could be a convention. So this would be, I wonder if this is actually named in the debugger. Oh, it's used before its initialization. Oh, that's interesting. So I can't actually use, yeah, of course, because they are in, yeah, so I'm blocked again, kind of. I have to have the actual implementation details before I can describe what this thing does. Yeah, so I just don't like this. I'm being like blocked by, I'm being blocked to make it clean, and I don't like that. Because now the only way to make this clean is if I double type my arguments, which I don't like. I just don't like it. Oh, wait, doop. Okay, that was toggle checklist item mutation. We have that thing, query to do, and then we have subscribe. That's just like that. Cool. That didn't take too long, did it? Where are you complaining? Oh, there we go. Yeah, this.user. Cool. Yeah, so this is how I organize the classes now, kind of showing the constructor at the top to kind of see what is its dependencies. And then I'm showing like private properties, and then I'm showing the public properties, but I'm also showing the implementation of them because I'm too lazy to double type my arguments. But I should probably just do that. But yeah, it's just, that's what I mean. It's working against me. And then blah, 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 blah. Query to do. Got my to-dos with checklist query. Fine. So that's to-do state. I think I only have weak state. And this one's simple. So we can do this one, export class, weeks state. And this takes a constructor of, this just takes family persistence and the user. Cool. Oh, and then, yeah, it has some previous. Oh yeah, so we need to assign them. Previous, what's this? Weak state. Okay, so we have previous weak state, we have current weak state and next weak state, and then we actually have to create them here. So I guess we can do, yeah, sorry. So we can do this a little bit differently. This dot previous equals new weak state, weak ID. Yeah, exactly. Oh, look at you. That's actually a bit cleaner. Yeah, weak state just isn't fixed yet, so that's why it's erroring. Oh, and this doesn't have to be private. Cool. That's basically that thing. Let's see. And then it's weak state. This one's a little bit bigger, but we should get through it quickly, and then we can see if it actually, if it doesn't work, I'm not sure if I'm gonna debug it. This is more to like evaluate the thing. But export class weak state constructor weak ID. Fine, and then but they have all mostly said the same. Exactly. Yeah, morning, Mark. Yeah, and that's the thing. But what's interesting though is like, so the VMs of Code Sandbox, they are real development environments. So, and I think that's been a struggle for Code Sandbox doing the pivot as well. It was known as this emulated browser environment, and then it pivots in, which is kind of a playground, right? You wouldn't actually develop anything there. And then suddenly it pivots to these VMs that are true development environments. They're running even on dev containers. So, and Docker. So if you have like a dev container config or a Docker config, it's exactly like running it within those environments. But that's like, that's not, if you knew Code Sandbox from before, that's such a hard pivot. Going from a playground to serious development. That was probably hard to communicate in retrospect. But yeah, so but it's very interesting to kind of just hear that, like it doesn't feel like a true development environment, and maybe all cloud development to some extent just doesn't feel like a true development environment. I don't know. Yeah, but yeah, again, it was really difficult to, like, we had so much friction around product development. Like, we never had technical friction at Code Sandbox. We were always super excited about the technology we were developing. We were also super excited about the experiences we were developing, but we had a lot of friction around product. Like, how are we going to communicate this? How is this going to fit with the existing product? All of this stuff. Incredible amount of friction. And also when we then chose technology for product decisions, like, how are people going to, like, paying for browser sandboxes is a very different monetization model than paying for VMs, because paying for VMs is usage-based billing, right? So we had to, like, we've been iterating on monetization for these browser sandboxes, which leaked into, like, the VMs. And then we quickly realized we couldn't do that. And then we implemented a completely new monetization model for VMs, which also wasn't driven by, well, it wasn't driven by, like, the technology. It was like, how are we going to monetize, which is not that motivating to work on. Oh, that's really cool. The one standard question so far. Yeah. And yeah, it's very interesting. And I like the team, and I was like, we haven't had, like, a proper retro on, like, the whole chapter of just being Code Sandbox. We haven't really gotten the chance, but there's a lot of retrospects there, or retrospective reflections on what happened. But we never had a technology or lack of, like, talent, or the pure joy of building something. That was always there. It was just figuring out the product and how to communicate it, which I guess is like every startup's story, I guess. Finding market fit. Anyways, yeah, but thanks so much for that feedback. That's very interesting to hear. All right, so we have, I think we're able to just shove these two in here. So these are private. This dot family persistence. So now this is a query. Yeah, and this dot weak ID is also available there. That's nice. Okay, and then we have all the things. So we have ID, which is this weak ID. I guess that's fine. And then we have weak query, which equals, now it's called query, this dot family persistence, this dot weak ID equals query. And then we're just gonna go and grab all directly here shortly. Well, maybe we can do it weak to do query. Weak to do query. Where are you? Oh, sorry. Weak to do query. Oh, it's actually called. This the weak to do API get all. And then it's query weak to do. But this is a method, right? So I don't mess that up again. Query weak to do. Yeah. That's a method. Doop, 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 doop. And then this. Okay, we're actually very, very shortly arriving at our destination. And then we have subscribe. This mutation needs to go up here though. Let's just shove subscribe in there first. Boop. This, and this. Okay, and the last thing was a mutation, and that was set assignments. So let's just inline that. Equals mutation. By the way, I'm actually going to work on Code Sandbox like the SDK and Sampack today. We were supposed to do like a summary. We did a summary session on Friday, but we got into specifying scope for something. That happens often. Like our product manager, Nico, she's amazing. She's the most amazing product manager I ever worked with. I feel for her sometimes. Like she's rallying everyone around like her product goals. And then she kind of asked a question about how are we thinking about these snapshot tags that we're going to implement? Do we think we can make this for the next release? And then there's a lot more that we're supposed to talk about around the release, and then suddenly someone says, yeah, but someone says, well, it doesn't look good, like, because there's so many open questions on how to actually do it, so it's hard to make an estimate. And then like Yves, the founder of Code Sandbox, says, well, this is how I'm thinking about it. And then I'm coming in and I'm saying, which is kind of typically my role, which is, yeah, but do we really have to do all of that? Like, can we just do this one thing? That creates value for the users, right? And then we start this whole round trip discussing really the scope of this thing. And Nico knows us so well that when we're on a roll, it's better to just let us do it, and then we'll do another session getting through the more formalities of the release. But again, yeah, it's nice to work with people that knows you. Yeah. Yeah, feature creep. Like I take pride in like always trying to find, or it's at least I feel comfortable in the role of like always questioning like just comparing like what's the absolute minimal technical implementation to do anything close to what we're trying to do. Like what's the absolute minimal implementation? And then the next question becomes, does that even have any value? And then, okay, what if we do this like one tiny more thing? Does that give any value? Kind of thing. It's an interesting like balance and discussion. But yeah. Let's see. Mutation. This user. Let's see. Okay. Now you should really be happy. Oh, you aren't happy because of this. Let me make you happy. Oh, let's just change the, oops. Change the order of the arguments here. Order actually matters. Oh, was it user and then family persistence? There we go. Wait, you're still not happy? Oh, look at me. That's really interesting. Like, which language is that? Is it Go or Rust that has like named ordered arguments? Cool. And main. Now we have new session state and we pass in the environment. Okay, now it's gonna be exciting to see if this even runs. Oh, unexpected token. Where was this? Family Scrum. Oh, what happened here? Wait. Wait. What did I do? This is constructor. No. Ooh. There we go. Oh, there's still issues? Didn't I just fix that? Okay, let's try again. Oh, maybe there's an actual... Oh, does not... did I build it? Did I build it? I did build it. Didn't I? Huh. Where's observer? Oh, I need to see the actual... Yeah, it brings in observer, but it does export observer. Oh, maybe it's just... you do, right? ESM index, export observer. Yeah, so it does. I think it's just my Vite config or my Vite build. Let's see. Let's delete it and then... reading persistence. Okay, I'm gonna give it 5 minutes. The whole point there is just to evaluate the code, really. Why persistence? Cannot read properties of undefined. Reading persistence. That's interesting. Oh, this is still running on the old stuff, but that's fine. Why is persistence undefined? That's weird. Oh. Oh, wait a minute. Sorry. Maybe there's a problem here. New family scrum. New family scrum state. Constructor authenticated. New authenticated. Session state. Wait. That one has the environment. And if I do new authenticated, oh, wait. So this end, why does it say that it's undefined? Okay, I'm just gonna check something. What the fuck? And weak state. Wait a minute. You can't point to these things? Why don't I get a TypeScript error? Wait. That's so fucked up. Why can't I point to... So the constructor it doesn't provide these things. Oh, that sucks. I thought I could do that, but why don't I get a type error? That sucks so bad. Oh, come on. And then I have to do like family scrum. Okay, fine. And then with weak state, it's the same here. I can't do this. And then I have to create weak to do say. Oh my God. That really sucks. I'm gonna ask ChatGPT about this. Why can I not, why does this not work? I get an error that weak ID is undefined. Or family persistence is undefined. That really sucks. Looks at initial after constructor runs, but under the hood with ES class field semantics, it actually happens before. How to fix it? Move the initialization into the constructor. Yeah, use a lazy getter. Inject a factory function. Ah, you know what? I can't help it. I just don't like classes. There's just so much orchestration. And now I have to make this like, I guess return type of, I don't actually have an explicit type for this. Yeah. And then I kind of have to move it up here now because now it's happening. Yeah. I don't like this. And then these are kind of mixes of property assignments and implementation details, which I don't like either. But anyways, do we have more of these? To-dos with checklist. Let's see. Do we have the same weirdness here? No. Where's to-dos with checklist? Wasn't that from this one? Yeah. Wait, to-dos with checklist query. It's to-dos with checklist. I think I just, oh, look at that. It actually shows. Oh, look at that. That's, oh. Yeah, I changed the name of this, I think. Groceries. Yeah, add grocery mutation. But that's kind of cool. It actually worked. Yeah, I renamed some things. But I think it's safe to say that it actually works. That's kind of cool. But again, like I guess this is fine. Like again, I want Mobx Lite to be like not a I want this to, like, the target audience is existing Mobx users and they write classes, and it's not about like convincing them to use this tool or anything. It's just about, okay, Mobx can be simpler and this is how it can be simpler. And also, you know, data management is very, very hard. React has some really good ideas on how to do data management, which is basically query mutation, which this thing also has. And then it makes like the reactive system completely transparent, which is just really nice. Yeah, and then, so I think I'm gonna, now that we refactor this, I think I'm gonna do like another run and kind of at least for me, just explore how would I actually define this, because I don't like how it looks now. And then I'm gonna wrap it up. Yeah. Yeah, we'll see what happens. I have a tendency to get to the last 0.5% before releasing anything, and then I just don't do it. Because at that point, you're kind of saying, okay, I'm going to take some maintenance burden on this. But it's such a simple implementation, so it wouldn't be that rough. And I think the message is good. Like just reimagining, like how would Mobx look like today with all the changes that's happened? And I really like the library. I really do. Okay. That's one thing. Reiterate on this. See how, like, embracing these classes, how would you actually write this code so that it still looks nice and is readable? And then it's like evaluating if we should actually publish this, because we're at a point now. This immutable proxy thing, I'm just going to keep it there. It's not going to be documented. It's just there because the React compiler is coming, and there's an opportunity that like Mobx is going to have a hard time with this. But having that immutable proxy allows you to still embrace classes, but you can combine it with the React compiler. And then this thing we discussed in the beginning with like the dev tools. I don't want to, like, I would love to build something that integrates with the dev tools of Overmind, because it's freaking amazing. But I don't want to do it class-based. I would much more like to take this function signature for state management and kind of use that as a, okay, again, kind of like Mobx, like Overmind reimagined, like with all the changes that's happened, like how would we build Overmind today? But it needs to work with the dev tools. I have no idea how to do that. It's so annoying that we found a way to do it with the classes. Yeah. Okay, I think that's it for now. I think people are starting to move around in my work environment. So I'm gonna pay some attention to that. But we're gonna do another stream because I wanna prep. As I said, we had a scope for the snapshot tags. So I think we can actually implement that while we wait for the API to get its implementation. It's actually quite simple what we're gonna do. And then we can move over to Sampack and the forking and stuff. It's very inspirational for the team to see forking working in Sampack, I think. But it's not aimed for release, or we didn't actually get to that because we diverged into scoping conversations. But it's not important for the release. So yeah. Okay, let's leave it. You know what? I want to do one thing first. Let me just check if I have an important message here. Oh, nice. I do have a session with a customer today. Oh, that's actually 11. Oh, okay. You know what? Let's just keep streaming until I have that session. Cool. And then I'm just gonna say I am open from have a session in 30 minutes for about an hour. In a couple of hours, would that work? In that would be my, it is 10:30 here now. So it would be my 12:30. Would it? No, it wouldn't be my 12:30. It would be my 13. Wait a minute. Yeah. Cool. Yeah, it will be really cool to have a modernized version of Overmind. And I don't know if you were part of the beginning of the stream, Henry. But we discussed how we could apply the dev tools to the function signature. I don't see how we can do it. And then we explored like classes, how we could actually make that work with a class. Because Overmind is doing so much tracking, and it does it in the action scope. Like it knows what state and what effects has been run and what other actions has been run in from the perspective of the function, the action scope. If it's asynchronous or not doesn't matter. That's the problem. Like to be able to track something asynchronously in a function scope, you can't rely on this thing where you just, okay, I'm going to start tracking now. I'm going to call the action, and then whatever happens globally during that execution, I'm going to track it as being part of this action call, and then I'm just going to collect that tracking at the end. Because when you do something async, it's going to like stop execution, kind of go and do something else, then come back, execute something more, and then you kind of lost that synchronous tracking capability. So you need to have an actual reference inside the action that embeds information about that call. Which kind of points into the state and points into the effects and points into the actions, just like the context in Overmind. But we don't have that with the function signature, which sucks. So I'm not sure what we're going to do about it. Anyways, I want to take a round through this thing. So typically, like how I define classes is, of course, I put my properties before the constructor. And I think something like this makes sense. But now add to do mutation, like just breaks the readability of this thing. So let me just do this and this, and we're going to say this.add to do. Oh, add to do, new to do. And then we're going to put the private stuff at the end, new to do. And I have to say new to do, new to do. And this is going to be async. Oh, async. Wait, why didn't that work? Does not exist. Oh, add to do. And then update to do mutation. And then again, we have to do this dot update to do, ID to do. Again, private, update to do, ID string to do. I'm gonna make that thing, okay, whatever. Was that the actual implementation? No, private, async, update to do. What was the, oh, pick, update to do. Why is this complaining? No. Why is it complaining? What are you going? There's a syntax error here somewhere. Where's the syntax error? I can't see it. What the fuck? Equals mutation. Ah, oh, sorry. It's self-referencing. Oh, look at me messing up the code. Okay, cool. Yeah, I just don't. So what you can also do here, like I can do a bind. Like I just, it's such a detail, but I really don't like this. So I can bind it to this, and maybe that's better. Like I like that better than having to duplicate the arguments and stuff. Yeah. It's just the name of the game with classes, I guess. And this is archive to do. Archive to do bind. Oh, that's so annoying that it auto private. Archive to do. Yeah, that's fine. And then add checklist item mutation. And that would be this dot add checklist item bind to this. What was it? Add checklist item. Was it add checklist item? Add checklist item. Okay, but I guess this is how I would kind of write it, I guess. This dot toggle checklist item bind to this. Like I could make these arrow functions as well, but then they're not methods, they're properties, and that doesn't make sense to me either. Oh, why do I have that E there? That's interesting. Wait, was it? Oh, toggle checklist item. Then we have subscribe, we have query to do, and this is a property, so I would put that here as well. But I would rather say filter this, filter to do's with checklist. That's also a private thing. Filter to do's with checklist. Oh, filter to do's with checklist. Okay, let's see how this looks like. So this looks pretty clean, I guess. So we're showing the properties. Yeah, it's very interesting how like you have private properties first, then you have public properties, then you have public methods, and then you have private methods. You would kind of think that, yeah, I wonder how people organize this in terms of private and public. From my experience, it's typically just very mixed. So do you group by private and public, or do you group by properties and methods? It's interesting. Anyways, this is pretty straightforward to read, I guess. Yeah, but there's a lot of like structure around it that I don't like. I like the old implementation better in that sense. But still, it's perfectly fine. Okay, cool. Should we just fix? I want to see if the app actually works. What was it? Groceries. Yeah, add. Yeah, so add groceries actually add grocery mutation now. I had the wrong name on it. Let's see, component. No, not components. App. Groceries. What was it? Add grocery. Yeah, and then I didn't expose awake. Let me expose that. Let's see, family scrum state. Awake is like awake. So we'll say this.awake equals this as n.awake. Oh, sorry, n.awake. You should be happy. Oh, still doesn't work. Cannot read. Oh, in grocery state. Oh, grocery mutation. Let's see. What were we doing? Grocery state. It couldn't read the family persistence thing. Oh, wait a minute. Where was that? In subscribe. Why can't you read family persistence? Oh, is it because it's being passed in as undefined? That can't be. No. Wait, what? Oh, wait a minute. Could it be subscribe is not being... Oh, this is undefined. But it's running through the proxy. This shouldn't be undefined. I'm binding it. That's interesting. Groceries. Oh, wait a minute. Grocery state. Where's this being called from? Oh, that's grocery shopping. Sorry, here it's being called. Groceries.subscribe. Why doesn't it have its context? Maybe that's a bug. Let's check it. Let's check it. So now you can see the implementation. It's kind of interesting. So we're creating an object proxy here. And if it's a custom class, we are bounding the method. So it's actually accessing like groceries.subscribe, which should trigger this thing. What the fuck? Key. So we can see if we get like a hit on subscribe here. Oh, we don't. I wonder why. This is going to be a little bit tricky, I think, because we're accessing a bunch of stuff. Oh, it's not hitting anything. Why? Groceries. Oh, it's not a proxy. That's why. Oh, but that's fine. It shouldn't be a proxy. That's fine. But when I'm accessing subscribe, oh, fuck. It needs to be a proxy. Why? Oh. Yeah, sorry. I implemented it a bit wrong. Why did I think it wasn't supposed to be a proxy? And why does the first thing work? Oh, yeah, because here we don't actually check if it's... Oh, okay. Sorry. We have to return those custom classes also as proxies. Let's see. Thinking. So that means, oh, sorry. So here, enhanced. Why isn't this a proxy? Proxy. I am confused. Oh, wait a minute. Sorry. So we're accessing. Yeah. So we're looking at get and then if key, proxy target, key symbol, bound methods, observed keys. If it's a getter, if it's not a getter. Yeah, hi. Yeah, so basically what we're doing, I can quickly show while I'm thinking about, oh, sorry. While I'm thinking about this one, yarn docs dev. Oh. There we are. So what's different is, oh, there we go. So normally with Mobx, when you define your classes, you have to make them observable. You define with the class that it's reactive by typically doing like constructor make auto observable. And then you also have to define what should not be observable. So either you use decorators and explicitly say each prop and each action being observable or not, or you use make auto observable, and then you have like exceptions of what you don't want to be observable. But here we don't do that. You just define classes. They aren't even reactive when you define them. What we rather do is that we have a single reactive bridge between your state management and React. So it doesn't matter how deeply nested your classes are. You only have this single reactive thing that you use where you expose to React, which could be like a value exposed on context or something. And then the magic happens. And the magic is that this proxy lazily makes your state management reactive. or observable. So React, by the sheer fact of accessing counter.count, it checks, is this an observable? If it isn't, it makes it observable. And then whenever you access a method, it binds that method. So you can do it like inline. And if I were to try to actually change the count directly here, the proxy actually gives an error. So you aren't allowed to do mutations from React. So it's very interesting. Well, so yeah, so it actually started with that. Like, how can we make observers transparent, component observers? And that's handled by this. It's actually in the official documentation now. We created this project called, it was such a bad name, like React plugin bubble. I can't remember. But there's a bubble plugin and SWC plugin that just wraps all your components as an observer. And that's the way that becomes transparent. While here, the transparency happens by just having this single reactive thing and then lazily making your state management observable. So when you write your code, the only place you actually are exposed to any reactive system is here. At the exact point where you create, like, you basically provide your state management to React. You don't see it in React. You don't see it in your state management. You just write object-oriented state management, and then you just write components. Yeah, it's really cool. And then it includes these two primitives of query and mutation, which just is this like progress that happened in React. Like, React found a really nice way of managing queries and mutations for data management, and this applies to primitives to Mobx Lite, which allows you to do that in your state management, but still consume it in a good way in React. Yeah, Mobx is, like, I really love Mobx. I've used it a ton. But yeah, the quest here has been to, like, how simple can we make it? And kind of just get all that reactivity out of your face and just use the language. So that's the interesting thing here, is that we actually achieved writing state management just using the language. There's nothing in there that looks special or anything like that. And the same goes for components. Like, you just write components. There's nothing reactive primitives or anything that that's in your face or affects how you define your component or anything like that, which is cool. Yes, but we had a bug because for some reason oh, I know why. It's because, let's see, when we run through this, no, we do create proxy. What the fuck? Keybox value get. Where were we? Yeah, no. What were we? We were on 5. Oh, there's nothing happening there. Why is there nothing happening there? Oh, wait. Is this even running? I am confused. Do I have to? Oh, wait a minute. Do we? Wait, how could it even work if I don't... Like, we're not making it reactive. Oh, oh, I know why it works. Like, there's no reactivity here. Ah, that's so funny. I have not... The reason it worked is because we're just showing the initial state. And that's, of course, there. But we... Oh my God. That's too good. And the navigation isn't state management. That's just a router, right? That's why I can navigate. And I'm like, oh, this is working. Let's see what happens now. Oh, but it's still okay. But at least now we know that it's reactive. Oh, sorry. Minimize. Where are you? Oh, we're here. Let me still log these things. At least now it should be using the... There we get it. Okay. Yeah, and then it has family scrum here. But it's not making family scrum state. Where does it actually access family scrum? I can't see it. So we do access it. We access it in one of our components. Where's session? So here we do family scrum state dot family scrum. Okay, so we are accessing authenticated there. Yeah, so we're accessing current. But from there, it doesn't access anymore. It's almost like when we're accessing a property of the state itself, it doesn't track that. Yeah, so authenticated here. Isn't a proxy. Could it be... Yeah, look at this. This isn't a proxy. Okay, this can be an actual issue with the approach. Ah, shit, I have to do a session soon. So the problem here is dagnagit. Maybe this doesn't work. So we're creating authenticated here. We are replacing state with this new thing. And let's look at... But then, yeah, so the thing that I'm curious about is... Oh, wait a minute. Sorry. It's the way I log it. Let's see. Where was it? Here we go. So we should rather say const return value or something. Return value. Sorry. This is the thing we're actually getting here. Let's see. Let's run that. Yeah, so we are getting a proxy of this thing. But for some reason, when I access family, why doesn't it log that we are subscribe? It feels like it's not even getting into that, because I would expect it to, like, we're accessing a lot of other things. Oh, wait a minute. Is this from the dashboard? No, we're not subscribing to. Where does it call subscribe from? It does do it from here. Groceries.subscribe. And wait, and then groceries. But grocery state isn't a proxy. And why isn't it a proxy? Yeah, so the thing I don't understand is what happens here. We have family scrum, and then we have dot groceries. So this, I don't understand this. Family scrum state groceries. So for some reason, when I access this groceries, it doesn't make that state a proxy, but I can't even see that we're accessing it. That's the thing I don't understand. But that would be here, right? Oop, key. Oh, yeah, up, state. Okay, so, oh shit. So we're looking at state. We're on authenticated class. We're looking up state. But is a state state? It's almost like observed keys has key. Oh, wait a minute. Maybe this is it. Create proxy. That could be it. There we go. There we go. Look at me fixing bugs. Yeah, it needs to, like, create proxy doesn't literally mean create proxy. It means create proxy if needed. Okay, cool. Yeah, so now it's definitely working. Yeah. Nice. Okay, cool. I need to jump into a session. But after that session, yeah, I might be doing actually another session. Oh, interesting. Is it up to date? Let's see. Yeah, so I'm gonna do that session, and I'm gonna do lunch, and then I might do that other session. I haven't got confirmation on it yet. And then I might do another stream after that, implementing the snapshot tags. Yeah. Okay, cool. But this was a lot of different things. But I think we have a conclusion that we're gonna, I want to publish Mobx Lite. I think it has just the sheer fact, like just getting to that point of making state management just code, not having all these like reactivity primitives floating around, And also just not having actions, flows and stuff like that, but still protected. Yeah, I think it's worth it. And then the maintenance burden is very, very low. So okay, cool. But that's it for now. Thanks for following along and the feedback and all the stuff. We'll speak hopefully a little bit later. Bye for now.